Princess Diana, become the most photographed woman on Earth, has finally broken his silence, and what he revealed about Prince Harry and Meghan after 8 turbulent years is sending shockwaves through royal circles. Because this is not a commentator, this is not a YouTube critic, this is not a palace insider leaking whispers behind closed doors. This is the man who stood just feet away from the biggest royal moments of the last half-century. The man whose camera captured history before the world even realized history was being made. And now, after decades of silence, Arthur Edwards is looking back at everything he witnessed, and some of his observations are impossible to ignore. Arthur Edwards has spent nearly 50 years following the royal family through triumph, heartbreak, scandal, and transformation. He was there when a shy 19-year-old Diana Spencer walked out of a London nursery school and unknowingly stepped into history. He was there when the world became obsessed with the future Princess of Wales. He was there when Charles and Diana appeared to be the fairy tale couple everyone wanted them to be. And perhaps most hauntingly, he was there during those final years when the cracks inside the royal family became impossible to hide. What makes his perspective so fascinating is not just what he saw, it is what he remembers. Because while millions of people watched royal events through television screens, Arthur Edwards watched them through a lens from only a few feet away. He noticed expressions, he noticed body language, he noticed moments that lasted only seconds but revealed emotions that words never could. And after spending decades documenting William and Harry from childhood to adulthood, he says one thing continues to haunt him more than anything else: the brothers. The brothers who once seemed inseparable. The brothers who looked like they would stand together against the world forever. Arthur remembers photographing them as children. He remembers the laughter, the teasing, the constant jokes, the playful competition, the bond that seemed completely unbreakable. According to him, they were not simply brothers. They were a team, a unit, 2 young men connected by a shared tragedy and a shared future. And that is why what happened later appears so painful through his eyes. He spoke openly about seeing William and Harry grow up together, learning together, skiing together, training together, flying together. They appeared to move through life side by side. Every photograph seemed to tell the same story: 2 brothers against the world. 2 brothers who understood each other better than anyone else possibly could. Yet somewhere along the way, that story changed. And Arthur admits that watching that transformation unfold became one of the saddest chapters he has ever witnessed. But the clues may have been hiding in plain sight long before anyone recognized them. One photograph in particular continues to stand out. A photograph taken at Balmoral during August 1997, just 2 weeks before Princess Diana's death. Arthur describes the image with almost painful nostalgia. William and Harry together, relaxed, comfortable, close, looking exactly like brothers who would remain side by side forever. Looking at that image now feels almost unsettling because everyone knows what happened next. Diana's death changed everything. The world changed, their lives changed, their future changed, and perhaps, though nobody knew it at the time, the foundation of their relationship changed too. Years passed. The boys became men. William stepped deeper into his future role within the monarchy. Harry carved out his own identity. For a while, everything seemed stable. Public appearances showed unity. Royal engagements projected strength. The famous partnership between the 2 princes appeared stronger than ever. Then came Meghan. And according to Arthur Edwards, this is where the timeline becomes impossible to ignore. Now, he is careful, very careful. He does not launch personal attacks. He does not use inflammatory accusations. He does not claim Meghan alone caused every problem. But what he does say is fascinating. From his perspective, the major rupture accelerated after Meghan entered royal life, not necessarily because of one event, not because of one argument, but because the dynamics around the brothers began changing rapidly from that point forward. The timing became impossible to overlook. Suddenly, stories of disagreements began surfacing. Reports of tension became harder to dismiss. Public appearances started feeling different. Small details emerged. Tiny moments that might have seemed insignificant individually but collectively painted a larger picture. And Arthur, standing behind his camera as always, was watching it happen in real time. Watching relationships evolve. Watching distances grow. Watching smiles become less natural. Watching a family that once appeared united begin drifting into separate directions. What makes this especially remarkable is that Arthur is not speaking as someone who met Harry a handful of times. He watched Harry grow from infancy into adulthood. He photographed him during moments of joy, grief, triumph, and uncertainty. So when Arthur says something fundamental changed, people listen. And perhaps the most striking statement he ever made was surprisingly simple. The old Harry is no longer there. Just a few words. Yet those words carry enormous weight coming from someone who spent decades documenting Harry's life. life. What exactly did he mean? Was he talking about maturity, evolution, personal growth, isolation, frustration, or something else entirely? Arthur never fully answered that question, and maybe that mystery is exactly why his comment continues generating so much discussion years later. Because when a man who has spent nearly half a century watching the royal family says he no longer recognizes the Harry he once knew, people naturally begin asking what happened behind the scenes that cameras never captured. What makes Arthur Edwards' comments even more explosive is what he revealed about the royal wedding itself. Most royal weddings are remembered as celebrations, grand occasions, historic moments, days filled with excitement and optimism. Yet when Arthur looked back at Harry and Meghan's 2018 wedding, he used words that stunned many royal observers. He described it as the worst royal wedding he had ever covered. Think about that for a moment. This is a man who has photographed royal weddings for decades. He has stood through coronations, state ceremonies, funerals, and celebrations that shaped modern royal history. Yet out of all those events, this was the one that left the strongest negative impression on him. And according to Arthur, the reason centered on Harry's growing battle with the press. He felt photographers were being pushed away rather than welcomed. He felt barriers were being erected where access had traditionally existed. To Arthur, the atmosphere felt completely different from what he had experienced throughout his career. But this is where the story becomes more complicated, because Arthur's disappointment does not automatically mean Harry was wrong. Harry's entire adult life has been shaped by his relationship with the media. He watched photographers chase his mother. He watched headlines dominate her life. He watched events unfold that would forever affect how he viewed publicity and privacy. So while Arthur saw exclusion, Harry may have seen protection. While Arthur saw a break from tradition, Harry may have seen a necessary boundary. And somewhere between those two perspectives lies the truth that continues dividing royal watchers even today. Then came another detail that sparked intense speculation throughout royal circles. In 2026, reports emerged that a prominent wedding photograph of Harry and Meghan had disappeared from a highly visible position inside one of King Charles's residences. Suddenly, people began asking questions. Had it simply been moved? Had it been relocated to another room? Or was something much bigger being communicated through a simple act of rearranging photographs? In royal life, symbolism matters. Every portrait, every appearance, every placement, every absence, nothing escapes scrutiny. And when a photograph disappears during a period of ongoing family tensions, people naturally wonder whether the image itself has become part of the message. This is exactly why Arthur Edwards' story resonates so deeply. He understands photographs differently than most people. To him, images are not decorations. They are signals. They are records. They are evidence of relationships frozen in time. A photograph can reveal closeness. It can reveal distance. It can preserve a moment long after reality has changed. And few people understand that better than a man who spent 45 years documenting one family's extraordinary journey. Perhaps that is why his reflections feel less like gossip and more like a warning. Because when Arthur looks at the royal family, he does not just see headlines. He sees decades. He remembers Diana before the fame overwhelmed her life. He remembers William and Harry before the division. He remembers moments when the future seemed completely different from the reality that eventually arrived. And through all of it, he kept photographing, watching, recording, preserving evidence of a story that continues unfolding today. The most emotional part of Arthur's testimony is not his criticism of Meghan. It is not his frustration with Harry. It is not even his observations about the monarchy itself. The most emotional part is the sadness. The sadness of a man who witnessed a bond that appeared unbreakable and later watched it fracture before the eyes of the world. Every time he talks about William and Harry, that sadness quietly returns because he remembers the laughter. He remembers the friendship. He remembers the years when nobody could have imagined they would one day become symbols of royal division rather than royal unity. And that is what makes his final observation so haunting. Photographs capture moments, but they cannot stop time. They preserve smiles, but they cannot preserve relationships. They freeze people exactly as they were, even when everything changes afterward. Somewhere in Arthur Edwards' vast archive are thousands of images of Diana, William, Harry, Charles, and Meghan. Moments of happiness, moments of hope, moments that looked permanent but were anything but. And perhaps that is the real story behind his silence finally being broken after 8 years. Not anger, not blame, not revenge, just the painful realization that the family he photographed for nearly half a century is no longer the family that exists today. Yet the photographs remain, quietly preserving a version of the story that can never return, while the next chapter continues unfolding behind palace walls.